This man has helped thousands make millions. He's Steve Nicklin, founder and president of Nicklin Property Management in Las Vegas. For almost a quarter of a century, he's managed rental properties for literally thousands of investors. He's the man top realtors choose to manage their properties. I'm Gene Greisman. For years, I've interviewed some of the most successful people in the world. It's always a thrill to hear these individuals reveal the secrets that led to their success. If you're interested in managing or investing in rental property, listen up. Get out your pad and pen, because you're about to learn how to make money, avoid dangerous mistakes, be able to sleep at night. Investing in rental property is a proven way to solid financial gains. But is it right for you? What are the fundamental principles that you must know and master to make money in this business? What are the biggest mistakes that investors and managers make? Why should most investors hire a professional property manager instead of doing it themselves? What's the most important task any property manager must perform? Who is a property manager's best friend? You're about to learn the answer to these questions and scores of others. So let's get started. Steve, how do you avoid becoming too involved when making a decision for renting this property?
Well, that is the biggest problem, because it is very difficult for a person to be able to do that. And part of this talk we're going to have is that person would have to make that decision. Do they have the stomach for this type of business? Do they have the skills available? Or even a person in your family that will have those skills to make up for the ones you do not?
Would it be correct, if I might summarize this, that people are not objective about this property?
No, they're not.
But you can be if you're the property manager, if I hire you.
Yes, it's a business. Okay? And so the problem with the situation, Gene, is now that you decided your house is worth much more than everybody else, then that person has a tendency to want to prove they're right. And they're willing to let their house sit empty for months and months at a time. 2, 3, 4 months, I've heard people say, I am willing to wait to get what I want. And that's extremely, mathematically, just doesn't work. Or that I'm willing to take a less qualified tenant than normal, maybe somebody with less credit than you would usually like to see.
If I go out and buy a single piece of property, is this a business?
Basically, that is the truth. It is a business. Whether you're managing your own property or I'm managing for you, the only difference is who's working for you. Okay? And if you're paying me, then my obligation, fiduciary obligation, is to do a much better job than I think you can do yourself. I am not allowed to make the mistakes that you are allowing yourself to make. Most people who have not been in business for a long time really don't understand the business. And for the first time now, you are made the president and CEO of your own company, and you have one product and you have one customer. And the typical problem I will see is the owner of the property will now take the attitude of, I am the landlord and you are now the tenant. And who do you think you are? And this is my property and you'll do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. Who do you think you are, changing the color of the carpet or the paint without asking me? Or that, how dare you speak to me this way? Or why don't you return my phone calls when I ask you to? And I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to make this person do it my way.
Do you get people like that?
On a regular basis. And those attitudes will get you into trouble. Part of my responsibility or my job description is to say whatever I have to say, do whatever I have to do, kiss it if it bends over in front of me, Gene, and get your house back in one piece. Now, that's difficult for some people, because if you are the president, you are allowed to make mistakes.
You work for the property owner. Do you ever disagree with them?
Yes, I do. And we've probably had an argument ourselves. I believe that you are hiring me as an expert. I am a professional. I've been doing this for 23 years. And you came to me and you're paying me for that expertise. If I believe, passionately in my heart, I am right, I will argue with you.
For example, what would you argue with me about if I was the property owner?
One would be if whether or not an applicant was worth taking, whether or not, for instance, we accept this pet or don't accept this pet, whether or not the amount of deposit or the amount of rent we're asking for in today's market, those kind of things, whether we paint or clean.
You've already mentioned about 5 things that you might disagree with me on or say, this is what I would do.
Right. And if it comes to the point where the disagreement gets to the point where there is no win or lose, if I have to, I will take your orders and I will do what you ask me to do, but I will make a very large disclaimer about it.
I'm not going to get very much mileage out of you if I don't listen to what you say, correct?
I would hope so. That's basically what you are paying me for, my time and my expertise over the last 23 years.
But sometimes, I gather over those 23 years, you've had some people you said, I wouldn't charge this much rent or I wouldn't take that tenant, and they go ahead and do it. Then what do you do?
Well, I'm basically my own personality. I'm going to try to do my best to make you take the right path. And then if not, I'm going to basically do what I would do as if you were a tenant. I'm going to see if I can come up with some kind of a reasonable compromise.
If I'm in Vegas and I'm making an investment, I'm going to choose Steve Nicklin. But let's say I'm somewhere else. What should I look for in choosing a property manager?
Well, my opinion, the number one would be reputation.
Reputation.
You and I met through referral. You were referred to somebody you knew to be in the top of their field in Las Vegas. And that person at the top of the field referred somebody else, which was me.
Yes.
I think reputation is everything. Reputation is all I have in my life. I live by my reputation. I die by my reputation. And I think reputation is number one.
All right.
But past reputation is, can we get along?
I should look to see if there's good chemistry between us. Is that correct?
Are you willing to listen to the advice? Are you willing to listen to the direction? Do you trust me and believe me enough to follow my direction? Because if you're going to pay me but not listen to me, you don't need to pay me as much as you're going to have to. I am not the cheapest company in town. There are companies that charge much less than I do. But you basically get what you pay for.
Steve, is there anything else I can do to choose the right property manager?
Besides reputation and us sitting down and establish the rapport, is to find out, do I know what I'm talking about?
So how do I find that out?
Take a shot at me. Give me a problem, give me a situation, give me a past problem and situation you have in your life, and see if I can answer the question.
So I could come to you with a hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
And I could say, how would you handle this?
Yes.
If you were my property manager. That would be fair.
That would be more than fair.
So those are three excellent ways. You mentioned a fourth. Should I go with the cheapest property management company in town?
Well, it depends. There's stories you've heard that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. But a high-quality property manager will by far save you much more in the long run than the 2 or 3% you may be saving with going to discount. I would much prefer to have the best property manager in town at 10% than the new kid on the block who's their overhead's much less and they only have to charge 6 or 8%. I personally cannot charge 6 or 8% because I cannot afford to give you the level of quality that you're accustomed to.
We're only talking about $60 difference per month.
Yes.
That $60 can be insignificant when one considers some of the problems that one gets into in property management, right?
Well, yes, and most of the people coming to me, when you came to me, are worried about certain things, and what you're really worried about is the months and months of vacancy factors and thousands of dollars of damage every single time this house goes empty. Nobody will return my phone calls. I haven't seen any money in 8 weeks. Those are typically what people are looking for. And if $60 is going to make you or break you, then you have to really question whether you should be in the business. Mm-hmm. Or whether you can really afford to have a rental property. Because when the hot water heater goes out, it goes out. It has to be fixed. And you may be able to live at your house with an air conditioner that's been down for 2 or 3 weeks in the month of August. But in Las Vegas, it's not acceptable. It has to be fixed right away.
Steve, you've given us some great ideas on choosing a property manager. Let's conclude this segment of our learning and continue in segment 2 with property management techniques.